Have you ever realized it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you've barely had anything to drink? Or maybe you know you should drink more water, but somehow it just never seems to happen. Perhaps you've even been told, just carry a water bottle, just drink more, as if it were that simple. But what if drinking water isn't difficult because you don't care about hydration? What if there are actually lots of reasons why drinking can feel surprisingly hard? Today, I'd like to explore why staying hydrated isn't always as straightforward as it seems, and why understanding the barriers is often much more helpful than judging ourselves for them. Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Bays. I'm a researcher in nutritional psychiatry, and I focus on how nutrition impacts mental health, particularly in autistic adults. When we talk about hydration, most conversations focus on how much water we should be drinking, but much less attention is given to why drinking water can sometimes feel difficult in the first place. Today, I'd like to explore some of those reasons, because once we understand the barriers, we can begin finding accommodations that genuinely work for us. One reason relates to something we've discussed before on this channel: interoception. Interoception is our brain's ability to notice and interpret signals coming from inside the body. Things like hunger, pain, fatigue, and thirst. Many autistic people describe not noticing they're thirsty until they're suddenly very thirsty, or realizing they've forgotten to drink only once they develop a headache or start feeling fatigued. This isn't about being lazy. It's about how our nervous system processes internal body signals. Something else we rarely talk about is that water isn't actually just water. Different waters can feel completely different. If you've ever had someone tell you water doesn't taste like anything, and might have quietly thought, actually, it does. Tap water, filtered water, sparkling water, cold water, room temperature water, water from a glass, a metal bottle, a plastic bottle. For some people, those differences barely register. For others, they completely change the experience of drinking. And I think that's really important because if one type of water feels unpleasant, that doesn't necessarily mean that you dislike drinking. It might simply mean you haven't found the version that's a right sensory fit for you. Sometimes the barrier isn't even the taste. It might be the feeling of water moving in your mouth, the temperature, the sensation of swallowing, or even the feeling afterwards. Some people describe disliking the feeling of being sloshy. Others don't enjoy feeling full after drinking. Some find themselves avoiding fluids because they dislike needing to use the bathroom frequently. These experiences aren't talked about very often, but they're real, and they can all influence how easy or difficult it feels to stay hydrated. Sometimes the biggest barrier isn't sensory at all, it's executive functioning. Think about everything involved in having a drink. You notice you're thirsty. You stop doing what you're doing. You find your water bottle. You realize it's empty. You walk to the kitchen. You fill it. Return to what you were doing. If you were deeply focused on something, then that's a lot of steps. Sometimes it's simply easier to just keep going with the task you were doing. Not because hydration isn't important, but because switching tasks is genuinely hard. I also think it's important to acknowledge why hydration matters. As a researcher in nutritional psychiatry, I'm always interested in the small, everyday things that support brain health. Even mild dehydration has been associated with things like poor concentration, fatigue, headaches, and lower mood. That doesn't mean drinking more water will solve every problem, but it does remind us that hydration is one of the many ways we can both support our physical health and our mental well-being. One idea I'd love to leave you with is this. Maybe the goal isn't simply to drink more water. Maybe the goal is to find a version of hydration that works best for your nervous system. Some people love ice cold water. Others prefer room temperature. Some only enjoy sparkling water. Others prefer herbal tea. Some people drink more when they use a straw. Others have a favorite bottle or favorite cup. There isn't one right way to stay hydrated. There are lots of different ways. The important thing is finding what feels like the best water for you, rather than relying on willpower. It can be helpful to build what I like to think of as a hydration toolkit. That might include a favorite water bottle, ice cubes, a straw, lemon or cucumber for flavor, sparkling water, herbal teas, foods with a high water content, keeping water where you spend time, linking drinking with an existing routine, like making a cup of tea or taking medication. Small accommodations can make a surprisingly big difference. For me, one of the biggest shifts came when I stopped thinking, why am I bad at drinking water? And started asking, what is making drinking feel difficult today? I realized I wasn't avoiding hydration because I didn't care about my health. Sometimes I simply wasn't noticing that I was thirsty. Other times, drinking itself had sensory barriers that I hadn't really recognized. That small shift in perspective helped me become much more curious and less self-critical. If drinking water has always felt strangely difficult, I hope this video has reminded you that you're probably not bad at hydration. You might simply have a nervous system that experiences drinking differently. Once we understand the barriers, we can begin finding accommodations that actually work. Because hydration doesn't have to look the same for everyone. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is finding a way of caring for your body that feels achievable and compassionate. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What helps you drink enough water throughout the day? Do you have a favorite bottle, a favorite temperature, or another accommodation that has made a difference? I'd love to hear your ideas. You might also find my previous videos helpful as well, so check those out. And if you're interested in more evidence-based neuroaffirming approaches to nutrition and mental well-being, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.